Hello guys, let's talk about osteoporosis and why it's such an important thing to know about and why it's very interesting. It's really nerdy. I like it. It's super cool. So, osteoporosis is basically a reduced mineral density and reduced bone mass. So there, if you have a bone here and there's lots of different structures here and they're really tight. If you have osteoporosis, the holes between the structure will get larger and larger and larger as a reduction of bone density and bone mass. There are different causes to osteoporosis, but osteoporosis is a natural consequence of getting older. If everyone lived forever, we would all get osteoporosis. It's just what happens to us, and because we're becoming older and older and older and older than we were 100 years ago, we see it more often. We see it more often in women rather than men, because women have a worse standpoint than men, but you can still do something about it, and you can still have a great life quality and still have a great long life because you deserve it. So let me talk about what can cause it. The main cause are the genes. If your parents had it, or your mom or your dad had it, or your grandparents had it, you should go get a little checkup, because that's what causes it. Like between 50 to 70% of all diagnoses of osteoporosis. A factor like smoking or a large alcohol consumption can also cause osteoporosis. Again, it's not the leading cause like genes. Having a low BMI, and when I say BMI, I mean a low BMI under 19. So osteoporosis is actually one of the only diseases or lifestyle disease where it can actually be beneficial to lie a bit higher in the normal range in the BMI section. But if you have a BMI under 19, you should also be a bit wary of that. Again, age, as I said before, osteoporosis is a natural process that occurs when you age. So obviously, if you're over the age of 80, you are at risk of developing osteoporosis. The reason why it's a natural process of becoming old is something to do with the PTH hormone and calcium. I won't go into detail about that, but it's just something to look out for. That's why we will talk about calcium and D vitamin, or vitamin D rather, in the whole preventative measure section. Firstly though, before that, I'll talk about the two differences in genders. So if you're a man and if you're a woman, men have biologically higher bone mass and bone density rather than women. So if you imagine this curve, so this is when you're born, and obviously, and women here and men here, you start to develop lots of bone mass and lots of bone density because you're growing, and then you reach the period of peak bone mass, which again depends on where you read, is between, I say it's between 20 years old to 30 years old. And peak bone mass is the largest bone mass and bone mineral density you will ever accumulate in your entire life. When you hit 30, it only goes downhill from there. So we gotta work up all the bone mass and all the bone mineral density that we can, and then from 30, it's just preventative measures all the way down. So we develop bone mass, bone minerals density, blah, 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 blah. We reach 30 years old, and here it goes down, 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 and men just goes like this, just straight down the whole way. Women also follow the curve of going straight down, but then they hit menopause. If you hit menopause, or no, if you do, you're a woman, you hit menopause, and because you hit menopause, there's this, your estrogen production falls. Estrogen and other gender hormones like testosterone. testosterone, there we go, like testosterone, have a bone protecting effect. Now, when estrogen levels drop, so does your bone mass and so does your bone mineral density. So it goes, whoom, now you're down here. And then again, it just carries on like the men's, going straight down. But because you don't have that high level of estrogen anymore, we do a huge whack down on the graph in bone mass and bone mineral. Just because of that, just because of menopause. And that's why also if you get early menopause before the age of 45, you're also at risk because you have fewer years where you're protected by your estrogen levels. So pay attention to it. There are two ways that you can be diagnosed with osteoporosis. One of them is using a DEXA scanner, which is considered the golden standard of measuring it. When you use that, you get a T-score and you're always being compared to a younger person. That's just the case. I know it's a bit unfair, but it is what it is. If you have a T-score less than -2.5, you're considered in the risk of getting osteoporosis. If you haven't had your menopause yet, so you're a pre-menopausal woman, you get a Z score instead. And if you have a Z score below 2, you're also in the risk of developing osteoporosis. Another way of diagnosing it is if you walk along and you accidentally hit your elbow on the shelf and your elbow fractures. Well, that amount of energy shouldn't be able to cause a fracture because it's not a huge amount. So that's why you would also be diagnosed with osteoporosis, because something is not right. Like, that amount of energy shouldn't be able to cause a fracture in the first place. There are different consequences with getting osteoporosis, and again, as I said before, it mainly happens to women because they have a worse biological standpoint. But one of the risk factors of getting it would be that if you get a hip fracture, and this occurs especially for older people, if you get a hip fracture, then within 1 year you're at high risk of dying. You can also get wrist fractures, and as I said before, hip fractures, and you could get this. If you've seen some elderly people, this would be like a normal position of standing, but their back collapses, so they walk around like this, you know. So you can have your back collapsing as well. Again, it increases with age, and there's different age categories for different fractures. So wrist might happen at one age. Obviously, you can get all fractures at whatever age if you're osteoporotic, but there are different categories that we usually see it in. That this can provide a lot of pain because your bones are fractured and your bones could be broken, but also your individuality and your ability to do things on your own can also be taken away, and you might need some more help with doing stuff. Like, you're not able to move house by yourself, you're not able to do the gardening, you're not able to carry a big bag of rice from the grocery store. Like, you can't carry more than a kilo. You can't carry your shopping bags. So there's a huge grade of individuality that you lose with all of this. When talking preventative measures of getting osteoporosis, you generally want to look to the younger years. You want to look to when you're still developing. So children, you want a lot of activities where they're jumping around and running, because they're placing weight on their bones and forcing them to become stronger. The same thing when you're looking at between the ages of 20 to 30. You really want to do a lot of weight-bearing activities and just try to be as physically active as you can, but it's mostly the weight-bearing activities that give the best result so far. Supplement-wise, you want to be on top of calcium, and you want to be on top of vitamin D. Calcium, obviously goes into your bones, and vitamin D helps absorb calcium. I don't want to state the recommendations because they might be different from your country, but you can have a look on your own national website, and if they don't have any recommendations, you can go to WHO, but just make sure you keep on top of your calcium and your vitamin D. That would also give you the best chances, because if you don't have enough calcium and vitamin D in your system, it's going to be really difficult for your body to repair the damage that you made to your bones to try and make them stronger. So that's, keep on top of those 3 things. If you've hit 30, or let's say you're 50 and you think, fuck, oh my god, I haven't done any of that. Don't worry. You can start doing it now. You can start taking your calcium supplements. You can start taking your vitamin D supplements. Remember, more is not better when it comes to supplements. Just take the recommended from your national guidelines or WHO. That will be just enough. If you take an excess amount, you can either get toxicity from the supplements, or your body will just pee it out, and then it will be like money out the window, and it's better spent on something fun, like a cinema trip, or I don't know, maybe go to the fun fair. I don't know, whatever you find fun. Maybe some video games. If you've hit the age of 40 and 50 and you think, fuck, I haven't done it, you can, as I said before, take the supplements, and you can have focus on doing weight-bearing activities. Now, don't do more than you're used to, and make sure you do progressive overload. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. I haven't made one, but there's so many greats out there. There's one by Jordan Syatt Fitness and lots of others. So just look them up, and they give you a great in-depth detail. I haven't made one, so don't look on my channel. But if you do that and do the weight-bearing activities, you will decrease the rate in which you lose your bone mass and your bone density, because your bone mass and density will reduce. But if you do the weight-bearing activities, and you need to train balance as well to reduce the risk of falling and breaking a hip, for example, that will reduce the rate in which you lose bone mass. So we'll just slow down the process, which is also great when you can't do anything else about it, because it's just what happens. But I hope this gave you some good ideas on what you can do. And if you haven't started yet and you think, oh my god, I'm too late, you're never too late. You can always do something. Just find what works for you. Yeah. But again, it's a natural cause of aging. So, but if you feel good, that's great, man. I love you guys, and I hope this was informative. If you have any question, leave them down below. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later. Bye bye.